All right, I think we're going to make it work right now. I just had to reboot Facebook and we got it going. Thank you guys. Facebook's our emergency backup plan. In fact, on our Merchant of Wine or Zoom into Wine website, this is being recorded, so you'll be able to go and see this show immediately. Good, bad, and ugly. This is real time, and you guys are part of the audience, and we're excited to have you here. We've got so much talent on the Zoom tonight and really awesome wine lineup. So let's begin. My name is Ian Blackburn. Every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, we pull together wine personalities from around the world and we taste great wines with audiences far and wide. We got kits mailed out all over the country where legal. And we're excited to have you all here. And I want to thank right now at the very beginning of the show, I want to thank the producer wineries that are supporting this effort. They love Zinfandel. They want to see the audience respond and get more people involved in Zinfandel. And no organization works harder to do that than Zap. And we have the Zap team. If you guys would wave, I want to say hi to y'all. Rebecca Robinson, who runs Zap, is right there on our Zoom, and we want to thank her and our amazing group for supporting our Zoom tonight. Helped us get an even larger footprint. One of the largest Zooms we've had this year. So excited to have you all here. That's the power of working together and bringing the good wine. And man, the wines are going to be great. So let's get started. This is something that we do in connection with our full team. I've got my team involved as well. We've got designers and all types of personalities involved here. So let me just get the PowerPoint up in front of us, and that way we can proceed. Was a little bit rattled and fried by some of the action taking place behind the scenes. Couldn't get that damn Facebook thing to work, but you can see it's working now. And that's good news. So here we go. Let's talk Zinfandel. We've got 6 exciting wines. If you're on the Zoom, you probably got your kit delivered to you. And if you didn't, it's there's only one person I saw that didn't get their kit yet. So that's a pretty damn good response. We have almost 67 people on the Zoom tonight. Some of you are in groups. And that's fantastic. If you have a group that you're sitting at home around, we'll try to talk nice and loud and let everybody participate. You're not just watching, you're tasting with us, you're interacting. And the best way to do that is to use the chat box. People will look at the chat, we'll talk about some of the questions you guys might have. But if there's something that we're talking about that you want to go a little deeper on, ask a question and raise a hand and do all that good stuff. Here's our lineup tonight. Hopefully you got our materials emailed to you. We created a little tasting, a friend here to kind of show you what the numbers are. We have the little jars. Each jar has a little a branded name on it, just so you know which wine is which. We're going from Hartford to Ridge to Moritzen to Once and Future to Limerick Lane to Beekeeper. Let's get rocking. Oh, there was a brochure as well, which if you click, that turns into the brochure. Isn't that fancy? And that has all of our stuff. And there's little links right here if you want to buy any of the wines. And our little upcoming roster of events. Because some of you, this may be your first time doing this with us, and we'd love to have you back. We'll talk about that more a little bit later. But our first Zoom tonight is with our friend Tian Lorden, and he's with Hartford Court or Hartford Family Winery, as we're now calling them. So this is their Old Vine Zinfandel, and we recorded with Tiana. So let's go right into that recording. We are celebrating Zinfandel with some of the best in the business, and I want to introduce you to Tian Lorden. He's a winemaker at Hartford Court, Hartford Family Wines. Tian, how are you?
Hi, Ian. I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat a little bit with you about Zinfandel.
You know, there's different styles of Zinfandel, different approaches, and I really appreciate the Hartford style. You obviously have an amazing track record, great vineyard holdings, a very Russian River approach, and it's a very special story. So I'm going to get right into the slideshow and have you tell us all about it. But first, let's start with you. I don't think that accent you're carrying is from the Russian River.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, it's probably more Russian Riverized now than it used to be. But I am originally from South Africa. I was born there, grew up there, and got into the wine industry over there, and decided to just come over here to do a quick harvest. That was the plan, just a quick harvest in the Russian River Valley, but ended up meeting my wife during that visit. And so here we are.
Oh, very good. Very good. That's the way the world works.
That's the way it works. Yes. So happy to be here. It's a beautiful place. And, you know, I landed at a great spot here at Hartford. Fantastic wines, great area. So yeah, I'm working for Don and Janie Hartford and their kids, Haley and McLean, and they actually started this winery in late 1993. 94 was the first vintage, and the idea of it was, since this is such a cool region and such a great place for Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, that this was going to be a winery to focus on the Burgundian varietals. And so Hartford Court was started to make single vineyard Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. And so we're still really focusing on that, making Chardonnay and Pinot Noir from all over, ranging from single vineyards that are up in the Willamette Valley down to the Santa Rita Hills. But that same year they started in 1994, Don and Janie bought a house in the Russian River Valley and realized that in their backyard they had some old vines in. So the Hartford Vineyard, now over 100 years old, is really how the Zinfandel journey started for us in 1994. Yeah. So here you see the map of the Russian River Valley and other regions. And I like that they make the color of the Russian River Valley blue because it is so cool. It's a perfect area for Chardonnay and Pinot, and then as we realized for Zinfandel as well. The Russian River Valley gets nice and cool, you know, with the wind and the fog, and that cools everything down and gives us great acidity and brings great balance in the wines. So the winery is situated also in the Russian River Valley, and you can see they're surrounded by fir trees and redwoods, and really in the heart of it all, surrounded by the trees and by the vineyards. And I'm really lucky to have what we have. If you're ever in the area and want to visit us, we're just outside of the town of Forestville. We make Zinfandel from its 7 different vineyards now, all of them in the Russian River Valley. All of them are old vine. So I think the youngest vineyard we work with was planted in 1942. So that's 85 years or 81 years old now. So not ancient like most of the ones that we have that are over 100 years old, but very old. They're all in the same region. And yes, you're right. I think people really had a great idea of where to plant these with the gold-rich soils and with the, you know, it's windy. When you're out in this area, it's windy and it's cool.
Well, let's taste this wine and get some comments. I see you got it in the glass there.
Oh, I couldn't resist.
Yeah. So this wine always carries so much character of the place, but also in your hands, you really are able to prop up and properly present all this information. It's got this juiciness and this wildness, this brambly berry fruit that it's so tender and so nicely extracted. It's really a great ambassador for Zinfandel and a great ambassador for the Russian River.
Oh, that's a wonderful compliment. Thank you. Yes, we just you know, we feel we have the privilege to work with these vineyards, with these grapes. We need to do our best not to mess it up. So bring the fruit in at the right time and kind of try to have a hands-off approach when it comes to making these wines and just let them show, because they have such great soils, you know, they have such great climate. So just let them do their thing.
We believe that at this price point, this 100-year-old vine, 80-year-old vine blend of the Russian River is really one of the more compelling value propositions in wine.
You know, it's all native fermentations too. So it's a long and arduous process getting these wines through the winemaking process. They age in French oak barrels too. We feel like that doesn't detract from any of the you know, naturally present flavors of the wine, by using this French oak and bringing some spice components into it. And all of that, you know, it makes for a big and a complex and an interesting wine. And to be able to get that at $40 or so, I think that's a great spot, and many people can get in there and enjoy that, and it'll sort of open up your world into the Zins and other old vine varietals that you'll find in the valley.
We haven't seen any reviews come out on the 21s yet. You guys are in 21 vintage, but it's a perennial top scoring wine. And usually when these scores come out, the wine gets eviscerated from the stores. I would not hesitate. The 21 vintage is going to be very highly acclaimed. And I think Zinfandel setting up to be pretty special for the 21 vintage. And this wine will age beautifully for the next decade or so. So you know, it's a great wine to have at your fingertips, and we really appreciate you taking time to talk to us about it today. That's my cue. All right. So got asked the question, what is the alcohol on the wine? This wine is not shy at 15.5. I don't know if it shows off what that number may, you know, some of the reactions on your faces, but I think it's really juicy, balanced, and that alcohol isn't so notable to me. But I just might have a higher pain threshold than some people, but I think that it's quite delicious and really a great ambassador wine. What do you guys think? You guys come off mute if you like. And I'm trying to keep up with you guys on the joining the Zoom over here. It's quite active. I don't know if signal's falling off and people coming in, coming out, because the number doesn't keep getting bigger, but I keep having people join us. Natalie, how you doing? Everything work out? Lovely.
Yep, all good.
Good to see you.
Fabulous first wine.
Awesome.
So Ian, I think that wine is a classic of Russian River. It's got all the blue fruit and kind of the old vineyard character associated with the mixed varieties that are in it. Beautiful acidity, actually riper than you usually get Russian River fruit. I've worked with a lot of it, but Hartford always does a fantastic job with these wines.
Thank you, Galaxy, for the applause. Galaxy S21. I could put your name on there if you want to tell me who you are. You know I'm talking to you? I don't think you do. There you are. I see you.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm sorry. I thought my name was up there. It's Monique.
Cups and wine into it.
Let me rename that for you.
Thank you.
You got it. Can everybody see Monique's name there, or is it just on my screen?
Thanks.
I think I got it. Terrence, how you doing?
Ian, couldn't be better. Thank you, my friend. I'm
Glad to
just
see you, buddy.
happy. Sorry, I was off mute for a second there.
No problem. No problem. All right. Well, we are moving into wine number 2, and well, let's see what that might be. That is going to Ridge. Shauna, I saw you on the Zoom there. How are you tonight?
I'm excellent. How are you, Ian?
Outstanding. I'm going to spotlight you so everybody can see you. And
Ooh, there I am.
oh, look at you. Look at you. Well, we are excited to have you on the Zoom. This is my first time talking to you now as the Ridge winemaker. How cool is that?
It's amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I've been kind of Ridge adjacent my whole life. So to be here at Ridge it feels pretty special. It feels right.
Yeah, that's so cool. Good things happen to good people.
Oh, thanks, Ian.
You're the best. So thank you so much for joining us tonight.
My pleasure.
There were a couple of details I didn't get to on that last
Thank
one.
you.
So that video ended, and there's we're still in the Hartford wine here. So 100% French oak, 42% new, 8 months in oak. That one says 16.1, but the bottle says 15.5. So I'm going to stay with that 15.5. And
We get that much wiggle room legally. It's okay.
pretty much. Marketing department said 15.5. There we go. $39.95 on the website, Merchant of Wine. When you click through, you can get that. By the way, you all have 10% additional, and you get to take 10% off of every wine tonight. And that's going to be probably one of the best prices in the marketplace on any of the wines that we're tasting this evening. All right, here she is, and let's let Shauna do her thing. And this is the Geyserville 2021. You know, the name says a lot. Shauna Rosenblum, I'm so happy to see you in such a good place. Tell us about this beauty.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's see, Geyserville. This is a long-standing Ridge wine. Our first year that we produced Geyserville was 1966. And let me go back. So Ridge started in 1962. It goes back to a history on Montebello Mountain, which actually the initial vineyard at Montebello was planted in 1885. Oh, there we go. That's awesome. And the history on Montebello it's pretty incredible. So it goes back to 1885. The winery there is built out of limestone. The first vines are planted. Around Prohibition, it kind of gets abandoned. And then 1959, there's 4 Stanford students who start going up there on the weekends and say, hey, we kind of want to revive this vineyard. So they started reviving the vines up there, and 1962 was the first vintage that was bonded for Ridge. And so wine was being made at Montebello for a long time, but there's been a long-standing relationship with the Trentadue family, you know, of Healdsburg. And so our Geyserville vineyard actually surrounds the current Trentadue winery. And the vines for the Geyserville were planted back in the 1880s, 1890s, early 1900s. And the way that we make this wine is we do keep each individual parcel from the vineyard. We ferment each parcel independently. And some are planted only to Zin, some are planted only to Carignan, some are old field blends where we have Zin, Carignan, Alicante, kind of old school field blend. Each parcel is fermented independently using native yeast, and by taste, we decide which ones are the absolute best and which ones make the cut and get to go into the Geyserville. Oh, I'm sorry, my dog.
That's all right.
He's a sweet boy. He's loud. So yeah, I guess a little bit about me, my background. So I started at my family's namesake winery, Rosenblum Cellars. When I was 3 years old, my dad taught me to read bricks on a refractometer. My Girl Scout troop used to stomp grapes at the winery during harvest. By the time I was 16, I was sitting in on blends with my dad and the winemaking team. My dad and I started a winery called Rockwall in the Bay Area. Our lease ended last year and we decided to give up the space, and I heard from Ridge And, you know, it was interesting. It was like at Rosenblum, we made lots of Zin from old vines. And at Rockwall, we made lots of Zin from old vine. And of course, the answer is yes. So started with Ridge last year and had an awesome harvest last year. And it's been incredible kind of learning the history of the way that we've made wine for the past 61 years and incorporating that into, you know, everything, my kind of lifelong installation of winemaking from my dad and, you know, being around all these wonderful Zinfandel people. I've known Joel Peterson for a long time and Becky from Zap and a bunch of really wonderful community members. So it's been incredible. And working with fruit like this, I was kind of starstruck when I got to start working with like the Geyserville and the Lytton Springs and some of these really incredible old vine vineyards that I've enjoyed for so long. You know, I've been a Ridge Club member for 20 years. So I'm happy. This is incredible. And I'm so happy to be here with all of you guys sharing this incredible wine and learning about Zinfandel. And I tasted through this whole lineup from my colleagues' wines and they're just so impressive. So it's quite an honor to be here with you all tonight.
Wow, so great. I also need to say as a Zin fan, as a wine fan, I'm not sure there's a brand in wine, not just Zin, but in wine that has made more impressions, you know, than Ridge. I think Ridge is you know, whether you're, you know, because you make a number of different wines as well, Chard, Cab, but in the Zin spectrum, you've really been so important to really showing people the uniqueness of place and the way that you present it on the label and the different wines that you make. It's been an iconic movement and super important to the industry. And that's just obvious. But the 2021 is drinking phenomenally. These wines are definitely age worthy. And do you like it when people say, because I'm going to say it and I want to know if what you think of it, is being described almost claret like? Do you think that that's a fair way of describing the wine?
I do actually. And it's interesting you say that because, you know, we do our largest export is in the UK. And when I talk to a lot of our folks in the UK, a lot of them make that comparison that aged Geyserville, aged Lytton Springs is really quite reminiscent of aged Bordeaux, which is interesting because when I first heard that, I was like, oh, okay. And then, you know, I started looking for it a little bit, tasting these older vintages. The oldest vintage I've had the opportunity to taste of Geyserville was back to 1972. And I have to be honest, I had very low expectations going in. I didn't know what to expect except old wine. And it blew my mind. It still had so much primary young energy to give, you know, and being a 50-year-old wine, I mean, it's incredible. So yeah, I'd say that is a fair comparison.
Well, not only are the labels like timeless, but so are the facilities. But the vineyards, you know, tell a story. And if you ever get a chance to go out and see the ranch and just take a look at those vines, they're ancient and they really are amazing to behold.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. We'd love to host any of you if you'd like to come visit. This is, you'd be sitting right there on that little porch looking over this beautiful vineyard. So yeah, we're open 7 days a week. Give us a holler and come say hi and taste some delicious Ridge wine.
And Joel made a great comment there. We're talking about 100% American oak on this wine, on all the Zins.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. I'm seeing the chat. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thanks Joel for bringing that up. Yeah. Since 1962, Ridge has used exclusively American oak. And that's because Paul Draper in 1962, when he joined a little bit after that, said, if we're going to make the best wine in America, we have to use American oak. And it's interesting because when I think about the use of 100% American oak, it sounds really aggressive, as American oak can be. And so we're pretty judicious with our new oak, really only doing about 10% on Zinfandels, to try and keep all those sort of beautiful old vine qualities, the minerality. I mean, for me on the Geyserville, the minerality is something that's so special. I mean, it's grown in the ancient Russian riverbed, right? So really kind of gorgeous minerality that shows through 130-year-old vines. The roots are super, super deep. Yeah, let me see. Is there anything else in the chat that I missed here?
Another great photo.
Awesome. Oh, yay, you have some Rockwall in your cellar. You're lucky. There aren't that many people left with it. I mean, I have some, but.
Here's a couple scores that have come out on the 21 Geyserville. And always lots of praise. We're at 14.8 alcohol on this. Was 21 a riper type of year? Is that
Yeah, I would say that. I'd say usually if you look at kind of the alcohol over the years, it usually falls between 14.2 and 14.5. So yeah, 14.8 is a riper, kind of more expressive version of this wine for sure.
just a feature of the 21 harvest? We're
Yeah.
at 51.95, and again, you get the additional 10% off with your code for subscribing to tonight's event. So this is a great value. It'll age for a long time and give you years of pleasure. And I should also note that our grapes are organically grown. So this is all of the fruit in the Geyserville vineyard, and our Lytton Springs vineyard is farmed organically, because we think that that's the best way for these vines to survive long-term, and processed with, again, native yeast, native malolactic, no additions, aging in American oak, and bottling really as low intervention as we possibly can. Well, I would love to have all of the folks on the Zoom tonight, if you have comments, tasting notes, questions, send Shauna a chat, send the whole group a chat. We'd love to see you guys chatting back and forth. Would love to learn from everything that you're asking and all of her responses. Taryn says, what was the bricks level? It really ranges because it's about 50 different blocks, but the average bricks was around 24/7. You're right. David Gates is a great viticulturist. The vine's better because of him. You're absolutely right, Joel. Dave has the Midas touch, any vineyard he walks into. Thank you, Shauna. I'm going to now pass the baton and ask you if you could answer some of those Zoom questions on the chat box. You betcha. Thank you, everybody. It's a pleasure to spend the evening with you. Pleasure.
Thank you.
Definitely. We're now going to go right down the street, literally. So when you're out there in Sonoma making your appointment at Ridge, you can hit Rock Piles, Moritz and Family Winery right on the corner, and do them first, or hit Ridge first and then hit Moritz, and they're right down the street from each other. And Emma is with us on the Zoom, and I'm going to spotlight Emma. How are you doing, Emma?
Hey, everyone. Great to be here.
Fantastic to have you and to see you. And how are things at Moritzen?
We're actually in a little bit of a slow period. We are not shepherding as much wine as we would at this time because we felt like our 21 Bordeaux didn't need any more time in barrel. So we bottled those in March, and we're just watching to see what happens with the current crop out there and how things are going to set. So mellow. Wow. That's rare. You'll take it. Well, let's get into it and talk about our wine tonight. Tonight we're tasting a Rock Pile, and we are in. You make a number of Rock Pile Zins. This is the Jack's Cabin. What does that mean, Jack's Cabin? So Jack's, so, you know, to give a little bit of history about Mauritson, they have been growing grapes in this area. So I'm at the winery in Dry Creek Valley, and they've been here since 1868, immigrated from Sweden. And their original homestead, what is now the Rockpile appellation, they were merino sheep farmers, you know, they're grape growers, they grew prunes. I mean, back then, if you wanted it, you had to make the effort yourself to have it. And a lot of our vineyard names come from either interesting characters of the Mauritson history or locations of where they would see bucks, like Bucks Pasture, because that's where the bucks used to roam up at Rockpile, or Madrone Spring, because that's where the spring ran through the Madrone Grove, or Jack's Cabin, which is actually a fun story, pretty bright character, Jack Ireland, who was known for homesteading land, but he had very little respect for the law and often went down to the local watering hole on horseback and was often seen returning with no clothes. And the where Jack's Cabin is actually planted in the Rockpile appellation used to have a cabin, and it was a threat based upon how the 5 current grown children of the Mauritson family is if they were acting poorly, they would go to Jack's Cabin that was haunted.
Oh, wow. Did not know that. And we're talking about the Mauritson family, storied family, multiple, 7, 8 generations now in the Dry Creek Wine Valley. So a lot of history and amazing family.
Yeah, so an incredible amount of history. And you know, when Clay decided to take all of this wonderful fruit that his family was growing for, you know, world-renowned wineries and said, hey, you know, why aren't we representing ourselves? He really decided to make himself the black sheep of the family. So there's the farming side of the family of the Mauritsons, and then Mauritson Winery. And even though both sides are completely family owned with the same last name, we really operate as different entities.
Absolutely. My buddy Clay there standing with Emma. And Emma, how did you come to Mauritson?
Well, actually, I'm going to be celebrating my 13th vintage with Clay. I was hired in February of 2011, and he immediately made it very clear his expectations by making me start my first day on a holiday.
Yeah, that's the wine business, right? You don't get to really pick that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I slowly, you know, like I was hired originally as associate winemaker. Really Clay and I working shoulder to shoulder. He's very much a hands-on person. And then, you know, we kind of outlined a plan for me to eventually completely take over the reins. And that happened with the 2019 vintage, which is so phenomenal because the 2019 was an easy vintage that created beautifully finessed wines. And I don't really see myself moving on.
Oh, great. Well, here we are tasting the brand new 2021 Jack's Cabin, because these wines, I think, just came into the marketplace. And as many of the 21s are just entering the marketplace. So, but I know here locally, our distributor just received these. And so tell us about this particular effort.
Well, first of all, I think that everyone, all the winemakers, I hope that they would agree that 2021 was such a phenomenal vintage. And, you know, I know people are always asking, like, what makes such a great vintage? And of course, it's the growing climate. It's the ease with which the grapes ripen during harvest. It's the ability to pull a vineyard when you truly want it, and you're not pressured by a heat spike. You're not pressured by the threat of rain. You're not pressured because there's no tanks or there is tanks. You know, making a picking decision is multifaceted. It's not one dimensional. And for the 2021 vintage, we just really felt like everything was in harmony. The oak is integrated. There's beautiful fruit. There's beautiful structure. And that's what to me, has been working with Rockpile for over 12 years, in Zinfandel in particular, is that the Rockpile Zinfandels always have this level of power to them. And I know that's kind of maybe is taken as an aggressive word, but they just have this structure that's really not found in other parts of California. I mean, in Dry Creek, maybe it's a little bit reminiscent, but that's what I feel like what makes Rockpile so unique as it relates to Zinfandel. It's the Rockpile appellation was formed in the early 2000s. It's one of the few appellations delineated by elevation. So we sit overlooking Lake Sonoma, which is a very deep, cold lake that pulls in the fog as it comes from the Pacific Ocean. And as a result, we don't have those huge diurnal shifts that you see in, let's say, like Russian River or even on the floor of Dry Creek Valley. But you get this like really great tannin structure, really nice freshness, but also these nice savory components. And we intentionally have shifted every year to incorporating more larger format barrels to retain more of those details of the fruit. And so like a classic barrel, 60 gallons. So we age like over 75% in 132 gallon barrels. So we have slower evolution of the fruit. One thing that I'm proud of as a winemaker who's been in this industry for over 20 years is that the more I learn, the less I want to be involved. So meaning like Shauna was saying, like low intervention winemaking, less new oak imprint, more of the fruit shining through, native fermentations, bottled unfiltered, and just really, really capturing what Rockpile is all about.
Well, I have tasted a lot of your wines, and this one is drinking ridiculous, beautifully, just so elegant, and really has grace and a wonderful texture too, because sometimes Rockpile can be a bruiser, and this wine just has wonderful balance and finesse in its youth here. But it's also got all that stamina and power and intensity that is going to make this a beautiful wine to age for many, many years. 822 cases produced, a little bit of Petite Syrah in the blend. And I've seen that Rockpile Petite, that's some pretty inky stuff. 14.75 by volume, and 100% French on this particular effort. Questions, comments? We are at $49.95, a great price. And I make a review for every wine on the website. I'm not always able to do them by the time we publish them on the website, but I get them up there eventually. And so I'm a real big fan of this wine, Emma. It's fantastic.
And if I might comment,
Yeah, go for it.
I think that this is the first of the wines I've tried that the texture is so beautiful, so silky. I like the small intervention of Petite Syrah, but not a lot of nothing else in there. You've made a beautiful wine that will last a long time in our cellars.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emma. Wonderful
Thanks,
to
Ian.
see you. And
Yeah. Great. Thanks everyone for being here and allowing Mortson to be part of this Zoom tasting of such incredible Zinfandels.
We're going to just have a moment for a little commercial. Next week, really fantastic winemaker Adam Tolmack is going to be joining me on my Zoom next Wednesday night as we discuss his incredible career and taste 3 fantastic brand new releases. That Zoom is a great value, about $20 a person. You'll get the tasting kit. There's so much to learn about him and all of the people that he has worked with and the amazing things he's done. Just the list is long. So I want you guys to look at it and take a look. Join us next Wednesday if you can. The following week, we're doing a white wines of the world type of look, and I've got some just treasures that we bring into the store, and we love to learn about different grapes, different places. I interview different winemakers. It's a lot of fun, and white wines of the world in about 2 weeks. And finally, our big spectacular for next month, where we get 6 different winemakers on the Zoom. We're going to the Rhone Valley in France, and the wine lineup is crazy. So check out our Rhone Zoom. That's in the middle of July. Next up, and a very patient man, Joel Peterson, is waiting for us. And I want to get Joel on the Zoom. And Joel is, quite honestly, the godfather of Zinfandel. And I'm so pleased and honored to have you again on the Zoom, Joel. Thank you for being here.
I'm delighted to be here, Ian. Talking about Zinfandel is something I love to do. Drinking it, I like even more. And there's some really lovely wines here.
Fantastic. We'll keep the chat box hot, everybody. Emma is there if you have any questions or comments about Moritzen. And we encourage you to go and visit all of these wineries, make your appointments, get to know these brands, go and see them firsthand. And, Joel has a storied career. We're going to learn a lot about Joel in this session. I don't want to take away anything that you're going to say, but it's always great to have some of the folks that we all look up to as winemakers on the Zoom, to be able to learn from you and to lean into where you've come from, what you've learned, and you're always so generous to share. So thank you for being here. When did you start Once and Future?
I started Once and Future in 2014. It was really a response to sort of seeing Ravenswood go down a path that I wasn't happy with. Constellation had owned it for a number of years. I had worked with them for almost 16 years. And it had been, a pretty good ride, but it began going in another direction. And really, I'm 76 now. I was 66 then. I wanted to see what my third act would be. And what I really wanted to do was start the winery that I wanted to have when I started Ravenswood. I started Ravenswood as a 327 case winery, one man doing everything, and expected it to maybe grow to 3,000 cases. And of course, it got a little out of hand, and again, a million cases later. What can I say? But
made a lot of people a lot of money, and that takes some of that in the wine.
Well, it's true, and I made a lot of people happy with good Zinfandel. I made other things besides Zin, but the core of Ravenswood was always Zinfandel, and it was a grape that I think Shana described it as the classic California grape. I think Paul Draper thought of it that way as well. We didn't know where it came from when I first started. But we knew that it had been planted in California for a very long time. And there were some very old vines. And I had the good fortune to do my apprenticeship with a guy named Joseph Swan, who made Zinfandel trying to practice for making Pinot Noir. So he made Zinfandel like he was going to make his Pinot Noir. And nobody had really thought about it that way before. And the grape responded beautifully. Some of the early Zinfandels, from Swan 68 to 72 and so forth, were just terrific wines. So my winemaking really revolves around vineyards. As we can see from this particular tasting, every one of these wines is a vineyard wine, and vineyards are so critical. And Zinfandel is maybe the most responsive grape to its location of any grape. The wine that I'm pouring tonight is Frank's Block from Teldeschi Ranch. And back in 1981, I walked into Frank Teldeschi's front door and said, "Hey, I'm here. I'd like to buy some grapes." He looked at me, and I had hair down to my shoulders, and I was wearing tie-dye. And he said, yeah, I don't know about that. Who sent you? And it turns out his brother had sent me. So I thought that'd be a good idea. So I said, your brother. And he said, yeah, he does that to annoy me. He said, you can get out of here. But I happened to have a bottle of wine in my hand. And Frank said, oh, what's that in your hand? I said, it's a bottle of wine. He said, I thought maybe you'd like to taste the wine I made if you're going to sell me grapes. And he stopped for me and said, you know, we're about ready to sit down for lunch. You can sit down with me and we'll taste your wine. Well, my wine was gone in about 38 microseconds. And he ran off to the barn and came back with a gallon jug of wine. And I thought, oh, Dago Red. It's going to be full of aldehydes. It's going to be full of VA. I'm going to have to drink it to be nice, and I'm going to die. But as it turned out, it was delicious. And that was a wine that Frank had made from the block that I make this wine from. It's the oldest block on the Teldeschi Ranch. It was planted around 1900 to 1904. Production is quite low. It's a very mixed up block. It's got Zinfandel and Alicante and Carignan, probably some of the best old Carignan that I've ever tasted. It's just remarkable stuff. So it's pretty classic field blend of old California, as it were. Still technically Zinfandel because it's 78% Zinfandel roughly. But cobbly, red soils, and it has that really classic Dry Creek character. This is the 2019 vintage. I think Emma described it as being a really good, easy vintage to start with, and I think that's true. It was a very moderate vintage that showed exceedingly well. Although the 21 vintage is really a lovely vintage as well. It's gorgeous. So everybody, get your 21s now while they're around because they're really good. But this 19 vintage has a little bit of age on it. So it's evolved farther than the rest of the wines, which are really strongly fruit driven, as young Zinfandel is. This one's evolved some of the secondary flavors that one gets as a wine evolves. The wine is really made. You can see there's a good shot. That's a classic Teldeschi vine. Barely hanging on, holes in them. But still carrying a reasonable crop. Really beautiful. And if you want to flip to the next slide, we can see Frank Teldeschi and his wife Katerina. That's about the truck they were driving when I first met them. Frank unfortunately passed away a few years after I met him, but Katerina is still there at 95. She is still a lovely, spry, intelligent, with it woman who keeps her two boys in line, mostly. Nobody can keep those boys in line, but the boys have really taken over the vineyard and they're operating in it. So we've had a really long family relationship. Part of the glory of being in the wine business is the friendships you make and the trials you go through year after year and the vintage after vintage. They always throw something new at you, and you make the best out of them. But everybody is part of that. So anyway, it's a great vineyard, and I've had a lovely career. You can flip to the next slide. I started Ravenswood, obviously, and it grew. But I still make wines the way Joe Swan and I made wines. Open top redwood fermenters, punched down by hand, expanded macerations, native yeasts, minimal processing. Really, the wines stay on the lees until we actually bottle them. So I'm keeping it small, and with the once in future, my vision is to be to have the winery I expected to have, and I do the majority of the work myself, except if you go to the next slide, I'm surrounded by bedrocks, harvest crew every year. So those are my redwood fermenters. Those redwood fermenters have been with me since the 80s. My two sons are hanging out there above, overlooking everything else. And that's the harvest crew from last year. So whenever I can't do it anymore, one of them will step in and say, okay, I'll help you out today. So it's great. So I have a community as you know, what was it? Hillary Clinton says it takes a village, and certainly it does to make wine. And I'm very fortunate to have a really lovely village around me, and to still be doing what I love doing. You know, it's a great life. I can't complain. And I get to hang out with other winemakers who make fabulous wines. I was just down in Orange County, and we did the Orange County tasting down there. And it's all winemakers. So it's like old home week. So it's pretty fabulous.
That's great.
Shauna, you didn't make it, unfortunately. I was like looking forward to seeing you, but I can see you here.
Well, this wine, I just think it is remarkable, and fascinated to talk to you about it directly. You said already that it's got a good part of Carignan and other blacks in the vineyard. Is it like a field blended, or do they separate the varietals?
I never separate varietals. I think that's heresy. It's co-fermented with these different varieties. I think you get an entirely different effect if you ferment separately than you do if you co-ferment. When you put all those anthocyanins and tannins and flavor components together from different grapes, they just form different molecules than they would if you put them together secondarily after you've already fermented them. And I personally think that it's you get more complex, more interesting wines that way.
Well, this 2019 Frank's Block received a very nice review from Vinuous, 95 points. I was even a little bit bolder. I really think that, you know, inside of Zinfandel, there's a few wines that kind of rise to this level. And we've all tasted some great efforts through the years, but I just think that this one nails it. I love the nose of this wine. It's almost hypnotic in the way that it has, like, it presents this beautiful perfume. And I almost don't even need to drink it. I just love smelling it so much. And there's so much detail and complexity, and so site specific, and really, you know, probably benefits that the vines are so old to be able to give it all that character, that charm. And I really think that only you could put this together. And I just really think it's one of the best efforts in Zinfandel that we've found. And so I've had a really good run with this wine, and I'm really appreciative that we get to taste it with you tonight.
Well, thank you, Ian. I'm really appreciative that you like it. You know, winemakers make wine, one, because they love making wine, but two, because they love to make other people happy and like to see people enjoy the fruits of their labor. So clearly, if you're enjoying it, I'm a happy man. So thanks so much. And thanks to everybody else who's enjoying it as well.
Awesome. We moved down the road to Limerick Lane, and we're going to be hanging out now with Chris. And Chris, are you there?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Keep talking to me so I can find you on the.
Can you hear me?
I definitely hear you. I'm just looking for you on the big.
I got the hat.
You got the hat. There you go. All right. Thanks, buddy. That helped.
And the gray beard.
all us dudes have the gray beards.
Yeah, well, we're winemakers. That's it's definitely comes with the territory.
Well, thanks for joining us tonight to talk to us about Limerick Lane. And I think we're all a little bit spoiled. Some of these sites that we're able to taste tonight, and visiting with Shauna and their old vine vineyard at Geyserville, and then going to Rockpile and hearing about the story of Jack's cabin, and then back with being able to taste with Joel what was that, 1900 or 1905 or so, Frank's Block. And now we're going to taste a vineyard that was planted in 1910.
Yeah. Well, I agree. Like as winemakers, we don't get to sit down and do this often enough amongst our peers. And so thank you for bringing us all to the table. We need to do better job of getting around the table and sharing these wines, because it's really been like a master class for me, tasting these wines and hearing the stories. So thank you for doing that. This particular wine is from our 1910 block. So the vineyard was planted by Italian immigrants in 1910, the Del Fava family, and we're on the eastern edge of the Russian River. So looking at the map, you can see where Chalk Hill kind of overlaps with the Russian River. And you can see the Russian River kind of heads north. So we're kind of like right where that Russian River, the Chalk Hill little leg sticks out. And so we are on the eastern side of the Russian River, and just south of the actual Russian River. So we get, it's kind of like where the fog comes in and kind of stops. We have a little backdrop. We call it our little amphitheater. It just kind of sets, the fog kind of comes in, sets in, and then is often the first, obviously, to retreat from the Russian River as it warms. But so we have this kind of mix of a warmer site, but still cooled by the Russian River. So and then the site itself is kind of an extension of the Russian River. So it's a riverbed. So it's really rocky, kind of gravelly riverbed soils, kind of a patchwork quilt. And this vineyard, this block, the 1910 block itself, just has a lot of character. And obviously the old vines really kind of add some intensity and nuance to the wine at the same time. But what I love about this site is that it always has a beautiful freshness and vibrancy to it, as well as just a nice natural structure, but not like big backbone structure. So kind of blending fruit and acidity and structure is kind of what I look for, and what really I try to kind of pull out of our estate vineyard, which is 30 acres, of which about half of them are planted as Zinfandel. So.
Very nice. Very nice. We've got something pretty significant here in the glass, obviously. Really, the nose in this wine is just so beautiful, so fruit oriented. It's got incredible concentration, and this is kind of something I've come to expect from Limerick Lane. Tell us about the founding of Limerick Lane.
Yeah, so like I said, this vineyard was the lane itself was called Limerick Lane because an Irish settler settled in and named it. But then in the late 1800s, Italian immigrants kind of actually planted and
It came in numbers, right?
Yeah, homesteaded and brought the grapes. And so there's a lot of iconic old vine Zinfandels up and down the lane. It's very small. It's only about a mile long, but it's just kind of tucked away. And the winery was started in 1985 originally by Michael and Tom Collins. Then Jake and Alexis Bilbro purchased the winery from Michael in 2010, and then more recently, Karen Francis Golia purchased the winery from Jake and Alexis, and Jake is still a partner, but Karen was actually married or engaged, I should say, to Tom Collins back in the back when they started the winery, and then he tragically passed. And so it's now kind of a full circle story with Karen, who was part of the original winery, is now carrying the torch and and it's a new chapter in Limerick Lanes. And I've been with Limerick Lanes since 2018. Jake hired me as winemaker in 2018. I was working for the Skinner family up in their foothills, up in El Dorado, making Rhone varietals. So I should also add that we also do Rhone varietals here on the estate, Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre, and so that's where we are today.
That's cool.
Stop the screen for just a second. I've got a little bit of reverb going on in the background. Make sure you guys are on mute unless you're being called on or asked a question. Thanks, Chris. Let me go back in.
Yeah. So did we get that?
Yeah, I think we did. I think we did. Everything good. And here we are looking at a picture of obviously some old gnarly vines here. Looks like a crazy untrained but head prune vineyard.
Yeah. We've been kind of since it was purchased in 2010 with Jake. We've been kind of nursing this vineyard back and farming it organically, trying to build the the soil and preserve these old vines and keep them going. Yields are very low. 2021, I think we got about 1.5 tons per acre. So I think something that really hasn't really been discussed tonight, which is just how important it is to kind of be stewards to these old vine vineyards. And I think everybody here is doing that and is a great example of that. And it oftentimes it's at a cost, to farm. It costs the same to farm at 1.5 tons per acre as it does 6 tons per acre. So you can imagine what your per ton costs are. And that's often the case in a lot of these old vine vineyards. So there's props to the other wineries that are kind of trying to keep these old vines going and paying a premium for the fruit, so the grower can still have a break even hopefully on the farming. But yeah, we're excited to work with some of these old vine vineyards and then of course stewarding this one as well.
It sounds like you and I have a lot in common. You come from a restaurant background, and then you worked for some great brands, Robert Bialy, Torbreck, William Sellium, Markison, and you lived to tell about it. That's pretty impressive. That's great. And then you were with the Skinner family in El Dorado. I know those guys from being down here in LA.
Sure.
And that's super cool. You've got a great resume. And when did you become the winemaker then at Limerick Lane?
Yeah, it was 2018. So I was working for those wineries that you speak of, kind of learning the craft and living in Sonoma during that time, and then got the opportunity to move up to El Dorado and work with the Skinner family, which was terrific, championing Rhone varietals, Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre, and then kind of came back full circle back to where I started here in Healdsburg, working with Limerick in 2018, and then also my wife and I have Provence Cellars, which has always been Pinot focused, and so it was interesting hearing Joel and talk about Joseph Swan and kind of that kind of approach, and I also kind of come from that background of more of a Burgundian approach to the winemaking, and I feel like there's kind of two paths that Zinfandel can take, more of a Bordeaux style of winemaking or kind of a Burgundian approach, and coming from the background that I have, that's what I know, and that's what I feel comfortable with. So we are doing similar French oak, minimal oak. This has no new oak. It has a couple of once used barrels. So there might be a touch of oak influence, but I think that's about 10 or 20%. And then the wine stays on its gross lees in barrel for 18 months until we bottle it unfiltered. So we do some open top ferments as well, and punch downs, and mix in some pump overs as well. But try to kind of do more of a nuanced approach and not over extract. I feel like the grape itself has so much to offer on its own that we don't need to kind of coax a whole lot more out of it. It just want to kind of showcase the site and these old vines.
Well, it's super cool to be able to taste this limited production wine. How much of this did you produce?
275 cases.
So boutique, and you can buy it directly tonight on the Limerick Lane website. That discount code doesn't work over there, but they'll be happy to take care of you, and you can purchase it directly from Limerick Lane. We do have a couple of different wines from Limerick Lane on our website here, but this is a smaller production that's really kind of featured at the winery. And you guys have a wine club membership and different types of things you guys do with your subscribers. So it's cool to be able to taste something. I've never tasted this wine before, tasting it with you here. So it's exciting to be able to do this week and to learn a lot about this particular bottling. 1% Petite Syrah, 99 Zin, 17 months French oak.
Yeah, this is looks like this was pulled from our 2020, but they're pretty much identical. All the things you say are true here. The harvest dates, like
Year later.
Emma was saying, we were able to spread out the picks over from the first week of September to the third week of September, and normally these old vine blocks are picked within like 3 to 5 days of each other. So Mother Nature was really kind and allowed us to kind of like really pinpoint different parts of the vineyard and pull them in over a couple of weeks, which is a blessing from a winemaker standpoint.
Cool. Well, check out the Limerick Lane website. On our website, we're featuring right now the 2020 Russian River Valley, and this wine's only 60 barrels produced as well. So it's great to be able to taste with you tonight, Chris. Thanks for doing this, and I've really enjoyed learning a lot about Limerick Lane.
Cheers. Thank you for having me, and thanks for letting us have a seat at the table.
Well, a great table it's been, and I just want to spend a minute with the crowd and have anybody make any comments or questions, learn from you guys and hear what your thoughts are. Rose and Peter Helm, is this your first time joining us tonight?
It is.
Great. Where are you guys sitting right now?
We're in Los Angeles too.
All right, cool.
But we used to live in San Francisco, and so used to visit some of these, the Dry Creek, and sort of our favorite region. And we were actually just up there a couple months ago, and excited to learn more about these wines when we go visit next.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephanie Smith, I see you sitting there. How you doing, guys? Hey there, buddy.
Sorry, it took a minute. It's been great. All of the wines have been amazing. We're loving it. We're looking forward to the Beekeeper too. I know that's the 6th, but we like Zin, but we have not had any of these wines other than yours before. So it was exciting to see it, and we're already making notes for the next time we go up to visit.
Beautiful. Rebecca, I want to talk to you for a second. How you doing?
Hey, Ian. Oh, I'm doing so well. Very excited to be joining you tonight with all of these fantastic wines and these winemakers. It just really is so exciting to be with everybody. I mean, the wines are amazing.
Well, we love doing this. We've been doing it for a couple of years, and obviously, with our back against the wall, and as the advent of Zoom came along, and we found these jars to really work well. We poured all these on Monday. We got them out as fast as we could, and we fill them all the way to the top, and they act like little decanters. I think everything's showing so well tonight, and hope you all agree. And if for those of you that are watching the video later, because there are a couple of people that weren't able to make it tonight, these little jars last until about Friday, and then we start to see some decay. So don't let those get too old. But Rebecca, so great to have you guys. You really pushed us. We made over, gosh, I think we were like 680 or something jars that me and my team of Oompa Loompas put together these things, and it's just it's a lot of fun. We actually have fun. We play music, we get some fancy barbecue.
Well, Ian, a shout out to all of those Zap members out here visiting with us tonight. They really put you over the top. Absolutely. Yeah, Shauna's got it going on. It's such a wonderful community. And I think you're showcasing this to your audience as well, that, Zinfandel gets it done. I mean, there's nothing like it. I've been doing this a long time, and I am always amazed at, the wines and the camaraderie, the passion, and these vineyards, keeping these vineyards going. And so, want to thank all of you for your interest in Zinfandel. Hope that you'll join us in San Francisco in January. My little commercial for ZinX. We do it every year with these winemakers, as well as another 70 or so up in San Francisco. And I'll put the website on the chat. But Ian, want to thank you for the opportunity to really showcase Zinfandel. And so let's hear about your wine, huh?
Well, I honestly, it was back in the early 1990s. I used to go to Zap every year. I tasted the wines until my body turned numb, my teeth were blue, my fingers were sticking to the glass. And then we'd take a nice long walk up the hill to a great restaurant, and it was just like an annual pilgrimage to Zap to be able to do that. And I've been a fan of Zinfandel from the very, very beginning of my wine tasting career. And I've always thought it's kind of an underdog grape. It's kind of the one grape that probably needs to be reintroduced all the time and to be discovered by more and more people. Of course, we California and the wine industry, there's so many people that drink Cabernet, but this wine can appeal to so many different people, whether it's the Rhone or the Pinot or the Cab drinkers. And I really think that the type of efforts that we're tasting tonight, if more people tasted Zinfandel at this level, we'd have more fans.
Well, that's right. It's the diversity of it and we always need to be telling that story. And so that's part of, again, the special nature of what we're able to do here. But again, the selection of wines is just phenomenal.
Oh, thanks so much. Well, I'm very pleased to be able to taste the group now on my wine. This started as kind of a way for me to continue my study towards the Master of Wine, which I did not get to present my thesis project because you got to pass the exam to do that. And I got close, but haven't quite been able to get those papers all the way to the win category. So we'll readdress that in the future. But started in 2009, concurrent with my study for the MW. I sat for the MW exam in 2014. But I needed to learn more about winemaking. And so I went to my friend Clay Moritzen, and he said if I started making Zin with him, I could use a vineyard that I was able to be there to plant in 1998, a rock pile site. And he said, if you start your brand with me, we can use that rock pile site. And that was the impetus of Beekeeper. I could have called it Blackburn wine, but there's already a Blackburn winery in Paso Robles, and they sell it at gas stations. So I didn't want to be that confused with that wine. So I dug into my family history and found that my family in 1851 came over from Europe as entertainers, but that wasn't considered a noble profession to get into America. So they lied and said they were beekeepers. And so now I'm a beekeeper too. And that's how Beekeeper was started. I make the wine with Emma and Clay at the Moritzen Winery using rock pile fruit and also a vineyard down in the Sonoma Valley called Montecillo. And that's basically the story behind the wine, which I've just told you. We are tasting the 2018 tonight. This is my reserve called Hidden Hillside. It's a blend of different sites and also some of our more excited barrels. It's kind of a barrel selection. And basically, I kind of like Chris, I came from the fine dining world into the wine world. I actually went to school to be a hotel guy or restaurant guy. I went to Cal Poly Pomona and studied hotel management. I got an internship working for Campton Place up in San Francisco. They're opening a new hotel in Los Angeles called Checkers. And they hired a chef named Thomas Keller. And the restaurant took off. And I had an amazing exposure to wine through the restaurant. I continued to discover wine. I didn't know anything about wine when I started at the hotel, but I found this amazing group of people that worked in wine. And then I started tasting wines and traveling to different wine regions and becoming more and more enthralled by the business. I went into the distribution of wine. And as I said, I started studying for my MW after a number of other credentials, and Beekeeper was founded. So this is a collection of different sites, but the base of this wine comes from Rockpile, and this is the 2018, which we are almost gone, almost goodbye 2018. We're almost going to hang a sold out sign on this wine, but we just have a little bit left. And here's my technical stuff. It's 96% Zinfandel, 4% Petit Syrah. And here's the vineyard composition: 56 from the GT vineyard, 34 from Montecillo, and 10% from that Madrone Spring vineyard I was telling you about. And we use 100% French oak. And in this particular bottling, we tend to use a good swath of the T4 Taranto 4-year dry aged barrels, really slowing things down and making wines that have great aging capacity. In fact, one of the tragedies of my business model is these wines really need about 5 years in the bottle to be able to kind of catch their stride, and they really get drinking better and better as the wines progress in time and age. We're at $79.95. You do get 10% off of that tonight with your code for being a participant, and that keeps that price probably the lowest in my history. So if you guys enjoy the wine and you want to participate, please grab some. And I haven't tasted my own wine tonight, but I'm here to answer questions and to open up the floor to everybody that's on the Zoom, and you can ask anybody that's still paying attention there questions tonight. When I make my wine, I have the pleasure of working with some great people, and I'm very inspired. Like I said earlier, brands like Ridge really helped shape my palate for Zin. And so I was able to work with some amazing fruit and some amazing team and be able to pull this effort together. And I like to show off the place, and this reserve bottling allows me to kind of culminate these places together and show off our best efforts. I think the wine is super spicy, super concentrated, and has great power, and yet still smells like the varietal and represents what I'm hoping you can enjoy in Zinfandel. I take it out to top restaurants hoping that there's a food pairing opportunity. And as a winemaker, one of the great pleasures making wine is to go into a great restaurant, see your wine either poured by the glass or off the list. There's a wonderful restaurant here in Los Angeles called En Naka, and they poured this wine with their Michelin 2-star omakase dinner, and every night they'd have a Wagyu course, and this wine was served with Wagyu, and that was just one of the great pleasures of my winemaking career, to be able to taste this wine with that course. Any questions, comments?
I have a question, Ian.
Go for it.
Your beekeeper is Dry Farm, which is I love, and I was wondering if any of the other wineries tonight were dry farmed.
A lot of them, probably most. Emma, all of Emma's. Ridge is dry farmed, right, Shauna? Yeah, I'm absolutely sure that Limerick Lane is. If that's not dry farm, they're out there holding a hose.
So Emma, the rains that happened this year, which restored a lot of the aquifers and below Napa and Sonoma. Is that a good thing or a bad thing for this year's vintage?
You know, a lot of people have asked that question. And from my perspective is, even though aquifers have been replenished to a degree, there's still a lot of aquifers, especially in the Central Valley, that need like 5-7 years of this kind of consistent rain to really replenish where they should be. But like Lake Sonoma, according to Clay, is fuller than when they originally filled it back in the 1970s. But, you know, unlike other parts where great wine is grown, like Bordeaux, where they get summer rains, you know, like despite that the soil profile is full, it's in up at Rock Pile in particular, you know, it's drying out, and we don't have summer rains to replenish that for, you know, for better or worse.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments?
Hey, Ian, great lineup of wines and winemakers, really awesome. Thank you so much. I just wanted to know if the bottle kit was still available, if that made any sense to do that. I would just, I got the, you know, the small containers, and these are great wines, every one of them.
Yeah. I think if you went back to the website, it still might be there.
Yeah.
But I don't know that you would pay much more tonight if you bought all the wines and then put that discount code in there.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Might actually even be a couple of dollars less now with the 10% discount.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks. All right.
But do try if you want to try the bottle kit, you can grab them all. If there might be 1 or 2 bottle kits available, you'd have to look at the website. I'm not sure.
Yeah, great. Okay, thanks.
We did sell a tasting kit tonight about 4 o'clock, so somebody's going to be getting a tasting kit. So it's still possible. Well,
I have a question, Ian.
Sure.
Quick. You mentioned what your wine pairs well with, but I didn't hear from the other winemakers. What would they recommend pairing with their wines? So does anybody have suggestions for these particular wines, which are all really beautiful?
Zinfandel as a category, guys, go for it. Joel, what do you like to see people drink Zin with?
Well, you know, everybody says barbecue. Yeah, then what kind of barbecue? So yeah, Zinfandel's great with that. But you know, I'm mostly a vegetarian these days, And I end up doing a lot of really interesting sort of Asian fusion kind of dishes that have, you know, sometimes a little curry spice in them, ginger, variations on that. And Zinfandel goes really well with those kinds of dishes. It's strong enough to stand up to the flavors, but not so assertive that it cripples the dish.
Totally agree. Rebecca?
Joel, I'm kind of with you on, I think, you know, Zinfandel pairs really well with meat, and I think we all know that, but there are definitely some kind of alternative pairings out there that are really quite brilliant. Like there's a grilled avocado thing that I've done with Zinfandel, which you kind of like, you cut the avocado in half, you put it, you know, sliced side down, put some olive oil on it, put it sliced side down on the grill, bring it back out. The avocado and the olive oil have some beautiful fat, and the acid from the Zinfandel and the fruit really cuts through it. You can add a little lemon to the avocado if you want, depending on the pH and acid profile of your Zinfandel. Maybe not the Tedeschi, because that had a really low pH, a beautiful pH. But yeah, I definitely recommend playing around, and kind of anything tossed in olive oil goes really well with Zinfandel. So yes, meat, but also other things.
And I would echo Shauna's comment as well, because I think that Zinfandel, again, that diversity of flavor profile in the wine can really lend to the different flavors and foods. We have Zinfandel with sushi, for example, not sashimi, but with some of the spicier, fuller flavored rolls. And we just had a Guadani vineyard, Shauna, Zinfandel, with a prawns bordelaise, and that was absolutely delightful, because it had that spicy character from the onions, and it really, it didn't overpower the prawn at all. It was absolutely gorgeous.
Well, I just had a great meal with Copper River salmon being in the market again, and Copper River salmon and Zinfandel can be phenomenally paired. And they did it on like a cedar plank, and they had some dried fruits, and it really brought it together with the Zin. It was just tremendous. So I love red flesh fish and Zinfandel.
I agree with you, Ian. Unlike Cabernet, which sometimes brings out the iodine and the metallic character in the fish, Zinfandel doesn't seem to do that. It seems to kind of like harmonize in ways that many other red wines do not.
And where did you find Copper River salmon?
I went to Jar Restaurant in Beverly, and they, I don't know, have some sort of crazy allocation of Copper River salmon. But you do have to kind of get there and let them know you want it, because they sell out every night.
Amazing stuff.
Amazing stuff. Yeah, if I was a bear, that's where I'd want to be. Well, I really appreciate you all joining us tonight. I hope you had a good time. I hope to see you all again. We do this every Wednesday night. Check out zoomintowine.com, and you'll see our upcoming events and some of the wines we use. We don't waste your time. We open up amazing stuff and get some great people involved. It's always, I just love the wine community and being able to sip wine from the comfort of your home, and the way this all works out. So one of my favorite things I do every week, and just get excited for it. And so this, we've got Zooms planned throughout the entire rest of the year, and we're going to keep going with this because it's really exciting, and there's no limits. Sometimes we do some crazy stuff that doesn't work and find out where the fence is. We really push it, but we do have some. You know, we're kind of making it up as we go along, and finding different stuff to talk about, and we almost never repeat the same topic twice. I mean, we might do Zinfandel again next year, of course we will, but we you know, it'll be probably different players and different wines. So it's always changing. That's what I love about wine. Don't have to drink the same wine every day. Well, thanks all again for being here.
Thank you, Ian.
I'll say goodnight, and this Zoom video will be sent off to you guys tomorrow. Don't forget about your code to be able to get 10% off in the store, merchantofwine.com. There's plenty of wine available, or go to Limerick Lane and buy their wine directly off their site. But we want to thank all the vintners and Zap and my team, which is some of them are still on the Zoom. So thank you guys very much. And just remember, you don't get to bill me for your hours watching this Zoom. Bye, guys.
Thanks
Bye.
again.
Thanks, everyone. Good evening.
Thanks very much.